We're kicking off this Boxing Day edition of Slat Rock Wrestling with Seth Rollins, who had a very different response to CM Punk's Survivor Series return than the crowd in Chicago. Since then, Rollins has shared why he's not happy to see Punk back, and in an interview on this week's Raw, spoke about his viral return last month at Survivor Series. He said, "It was such a mixture of emotions, rage and disappointment, but also like you kinda knew it was coming, and then when you hear it, it was almost like a disbelief, like you've seen a ghost, but a ghost that you really want to punch in the mouth. I guess that's the best way to put it." CM Punk has said that the WWE is his home, and that he, after 10 years, is home, a comment that Rollins has taken issue with, given Punk's negativity towards his home during his absence. Punk will compete in next month's Men's Royal Rumble match, and will likely pick Seth Rollins as his WrestleMania opponent if he wins, so expect their feud to be far from over. On the Day 1 edition of WWE Raw, Drew McIntyre will challenge World Heavyweight Champion Seth Rollins in what's become a deeply personal mission for the Scottish Warrior. Thanks to COVID, McIntyre never had his big world title win in front of live fans, and this has become an obsession for Drew in recent months. Speaking in an interview on this week's Raw, Rollins addressed McIntyre's focus on the title and admitted that he understands why Drew is so obsessed. He said, "A lot of what he's saying isn't wrong, and I understand where he's coming from. I understand his approach. The problem is, he's got to beat me for the World Heavyweight Championship, and right now, I dare say I'm operating on a level that is simply untouchable. So I don't care what version of Drew McIntyre we got on day one, it really doesn't matter to me, and I just don't think he can do it. I'm feeling like I can't be beat. I'm feeling untouchable. So Drew, I hope you bring the best out of me. You always do. I will bring the best out of you. Hope may the best man win." Rollins retained his title against McIntyre last month at Crown Jewel, but Drew's first PLE title defense as WWE Champion in 2020 saw him retain against Seth. Time will tell if McIntyre at long last wins a world championship in front of a crowd of live fans, and whose side are you on heading into this match? Let us know in the comments below. This week, Steve New, the lawyer of Ace Steel and Chris Jericho, claimed that everyone involved in the All Out 2022 Brawl had signed a lifetime NDA, except for Steele's wife, Lucy Guy. This got a response from Chris Jericho, who claimed that he wasn't subject to an NDA, teasing that he could reveal more about what happened, but New didn't buy Jericho's claim. In his own response, New claimed that Jericho likely had an NDA clause in his employee handbook, which has led to a fiery response from the former AEW World Champion. Jericho added that he has never had an employee handbook in AEW and has never signed an NDA, and accused New of being a bully and making egotistical fantasy brags for your client. Speaking about All Out, Jericho said he saw everything, including how Lucy Guy, Steel, and Punk acted, and said that what really went down in September 2022 in Chicago was disgusting. In the comments, Nick Houseman of House of Wrestling asked about the NDAs you make other people sign, suggesting Chris is being a hypocrite, which earned him a blocking from Jericho. It's been 478 days since what happened in that backstage fight, but the all-out brawl continues to make headlines, and we have to wonder what Tony Khan has to say about Jericho's Christmas Day outburst. Over to Impact Wrestling, as Deonna Purrazzo has been one of the company's top stars for years, but is at something of a crossroads in her career. The Virtuosa isn't sure what's next in her career, ahead of Impact's relaunch as TNA Wrestling in just a few weeks, and has been reflecting on her time with the promotion. Speaking to Sean Ross Sapp, Purrazzo revealed that Impact took some grief for bringing her in right after her NXT release and placing her right at the top of the Knockouts division. This caused some controversy, as she was booked so strong and became Knockouts champion without having an official contract, and in fact, she'd previously had a contract with Ring of Honor. Purrazzo explained that she had been unhappy with the ROH deal and had been unhappy with her NXT run and was still trying to decide whether to lock herself into a contract when going to Impact. In the end, Purrazzo decided to sign a contract with Impact, which would work out well for her, and that's why she's not taking the decision to possibly leave for other prospects lightly. On potentially leaving Impact, Deonna said it is a big decision she must make, and she mentioned being at a high level while in Impact and wondered if it was time to go elsewhere. She added that leaving Impact would be right if they were in the old territory days, but added that she was not welcomed at many places when she left WWE. Deonna Purrazzo could stay with TNA Wrestling and find a home there for years to come, or could leave and see what other opportunities are out there, and it's a tough decision only she can make. Now, last week's episode of SmackDown was actually taped the week prior, so the superstars and crew of the Blue Brand have more time off for the holidays. With an extra week to work on things, WWE had plenty of time to ensure that the December 23rd SmackDown was how they wanted it, which included making the crowd sound even better. On Wrestling Observer Radio, it was noted that WWE piped in some fake crowd sounds during SmackDown to sweeten the audio and make the show seem even more exciting. This isn't the first time this has happened, and we should say that piping in crowd reactions isn't a trick used solely by those at WWE. Ultimately, WWE wanted the show to sound the best that it could be, and due to this, had no problem giving the show some extra oomph in the audio department. Now, last time fans saw Sheamus, it was on the August 18th episode of SmackDown, where he faced Edge in what would be the Hall of Famer's final WWE match. While Edge has gone on to join AEW, Sheamus has been out with an injury, but fans can expect the former WWE and World Heavyweight Champion back in the ring soon enough. During Wrestling Observer Radio, it was said that Sheamus is on his way back, though no timeline was given to when fans can exactly expect to see him again. With the Royal Rumble coming up, perhaps Sheamus will return during the Men's Rumble match, a bout he won in 2012 by last eliminating Chris Jericho. Sheamus was on an incredible roll in 2022 and early 2023, but his momentum derailed shortly before his injury, and hopefully the Celtic Warrior will be able to get back on track when he's back on TV. In 2022, WWE signed Alexis Leet to a developmental contract in NXT, but last month, it was revealed by Roxanne Perez and Cora Jade that she is no longer with the company. Perez and Jade seemed very happy about this, implying that they did not get along with Leet, who recently made a shocking claim against the company regarding concussions. In a recent YouTube video, Leet claimed that she had some concussions in WWE before she knew something was seriously wrong, and it was a while before she went to WWE's medical team. As she was going to see medical, someone asked her what's wrong, and after she explained the situation, the person played down the seriousness, saying she simply rang her bell. This mystery person added that injuries like this are part of the job, and that she should just move on, and the general gist was that she shouldn't tell WWE she was dealing with concussions. The person added that Leet should spend a night thinking it over, but said that unless she is in a really bad state and is blacking out, she shouldn't inform WWE about her health issues. It's shocking that somebody would essentially pressure Alexis to keep her concussion a secret, especially as so much more is known these days about the long-term effects of such injuries. It's worth noting that nobody from WWE has yet to respond to Leet's claim, and that this is one side of a story, but we'll keep following this situation to see if anyone from WWE has something to say. Now, John Cena is continuing to make his name in Hollywood, and this week, fans caught their first glimpse of Cena in the titular role of the upcoming Ricky Stanicky film. The premise is that a group of friends made up an imaginary person to blame whenever their pranks go too far, but when one of their wives wants to meet this person, they hire Cena to portray the role. Cena was featured in Amazon Prime's teaser of several projects, and in other John Cena news, the former world champion is set to be honored by the NCAA at a ceremony next month. John will be one of 6 recipients of the Silver Academy Award, celebrating excellence in the field of fitness and athleticism, in what will be the latest in a series of well-deserved accolades for John Cena. If you've already seen The Iron Claw, then you'll have seen a heart-wrenching emotional tale of the difficulties of the Von Erich family, and perhaps the worst Ric Flair portrayal ever put on film. Actor Dean Eisenberg plays the Nature Boy in the film, and while he's only in one scene, his portrayal of Flair has been slated by moviegoers. Reacting to a clip shared online, Don Callis called the portrayal brutal, saying that Eisenberg couldn't even get Flair's strut right, and added that Will Ferrell's role as Ashley Schaefer is better. Wrestling fans can be a critical bunch, but even the most supportive of fans may struggle to stay positive about this portrayal of Flair, who is one of the most iconic stars of all time. Eisenberg hopefully at least watched some Flair matches and promos before playing the Nature Boy, as for as good as the Iron Claw is, this portrayal has definitely not gone down well with fans. It was earlier this month that Charlotte Flair suffered an injury during an episode of SmackDown, one that will keep her out of action for 9 months after she has surgery in January. Flair's injury leaves a massive gap in the women's division, with fans eager to see who steps up, but the person who claims that spot may be stepping in from outside the company. On his Strictly Business podcast, Eric Bischoff spoke about how Charlotte's injury may cause WWE to look at bringing back Mercedes Mone, who is currently a free agent. He explained, "I tend to look at things analytically, or I try. So if I'm Sasha Banks, here's what I'm excited about, or Mercedes Mone, either one. I'm equally as excited for both because she's got a great relationship. She has an established market value, there's anticipation, she's obviously got a fan base. Oh, and Charlotte's down for a while. That creates, opportunity. You've got all that over here in WWE on this side of the equation. If either Sasha Banks or Mercedes Mone or both of them decide they want to make a move to AEW currently, does that make any sense at all? I think not, but maybe I'm wrong. She's gotten the leverage, and if Sasha Banks wants, or Mercedes wants to just go do her thing somewhere and ride it out at AEW until whatever happens, be a part of the big resurgence perhaps, or be on the ship when it goes down, that would be a really bad choice. There's too much money on the table. She's too smart to not make smart decisions." WWE re-signing Mercedes Mone would also keep her away from other promotions, as New Japan have shown interest in bringing her back, and AEW has shown interest in the past about signing her. While Mone left WWE on bad terms, the landscape in the company is much different than in May of last year, and she has had a positive relationship with Triple H in the past. Whether Mercedes Mone returns to WWE or not, there will be a lot of fans eager to see what's next for her career, and could it be that fans will see the return of Sasha Banks in 2024? Over to AEW, as Wardlow was once one of the company's most featured stars, but the former TNT champion has been a victim of stop-start pushes and awkward booking as of late. While Wardlow has his sights set on MJF, the AEW World Champion is dealing with the Devil storyline, making Wardlow seem like an afterthought in the process. Speaking to Sportskeeda's The Wrestling Outlaws, NWA World's Heavyweight Champion EC3 spoke about Wardlow and said that if he was in charge, he'd make him a monster heel. He added that this monster Wardlow would demolish everybody, making MJF the protagonist as he tried to come back from an insurmountable challenge that would see MJF learn who he really is. Wardlow may have said he's coming after MJF, but so far all he's done is demolish talent you know he'd beat, and it remains to be seen if Wardlow's current storyline is going anywhere. It was earlier this month that Warner Bros. Discovery were in talks with Monday Night Raw, and many have predicted that WBD will be airing Raw when their USA Network deal expires next year. With WBD being the parent company of TBS, many have been wondering what a deal with Raw could mean for AEW, and whether WBD would drop AEW shows in favor of WWE's flagship. On his 83 Weeks podcast, Eric Bischoff weighed in on the matter and argued that if WBD ends up dropping AEW, he's not sure where Tony Khan's company would end up. Bischoff predicted a much smaller cable outlet may acquire AEW at that point, and added that the rumored WBD-Paramount merger could be very good or very bad for Tony Khan. He added that if the merger happens and WBD-Paramount choose Raw over AEW, this would be the worst-case scenario for Khan, who would have to find a new home for AEW in a pool of limited options. Khan would essentially have to explain how, yes, AEW was on primetime Turner programming for 5 years, the viewership declined year after year in what would be a tough sell. AEW's current deal with WBD is expected to expire next year, the same year that Raw's deal with the USA Network expires, which has led to more speculation of a potential deal. Reports suggest that Warner Bros. Discovery has shown interest in WWE, and that CM Punk's return has played a role in talks, and we'll have to see what the future holds for all those involved. What do you think will happen? Will WBD drop AEW content in favor of Monday Night Raw? Or could AEW and Raw both be broadcast on WBD programming? Let us know down below. It was only recently that WWE parted ways with McKenzie Mitchell, and now the former on-screen personality has announced the next chapter in her career in wrestling. On Twitter, Mitchell shared that she'll be attending WrestleCon in April in Philadelphia, the same weekend as WrestleMania 40, in what'll be her first wrestling gig after her WWE release. Now, Eddie Kingston has had an interesting career, and this year, the AEW ROH star was allowed to compete in the G1 Climax for New Japan Pro Wrestling. In a Block C match, Kingston faced off against Shingo Takagi, and this match was a huge deal for the reigning ROH World Champion. Speaking to Sports Illustrated, Kingston recalled being nervous ahead of the match as he didn't want to mess up working with the former IWGP World Heavyweight Champion. He said, "I threw up before my match with Shingo. I always get nervous before matches, but I've never been that nervous. So I got to the ring, talked to myself and said, yep, I'm in the G1. That helped. Then Shingo hit me really hard with the first forearm, and I knew I was ready. After recovering from his nerves before the match, Kingston settled into the bout, which saw him defeat Takagi in what some considered an upset win in the Block C match. Now Kingston is in a different tournament, the Continental Classic, and we hope his stomach is settled ahead of his Blue League Finals match against Bryan Danielson this week on Dynamite. This weekend, AEW will host its World's End pay-per-view, which will be the first of its kind for the promotion, but there could soon be even more in store for fans. In the past, it's been suggested that AEW could add more pay-per-view events, perhaps resembling the one-month structure we've seen for years from WWE. On his 83 Weeks podcast, Eric Bischoff addressed the possibility of a change in AEW's event structure and predicts that AEW will inevitably see a drop in pay-per-view buys. If AEW goes to one a month, the sheer cost of buying every single event will cause some to cut back, according to Bischoff, who'd expect a 15 to 20% drop over the year. While there'd be a drop in pay-per-view buys, Bischoff added that more events, even with fewer buys, will add to AEW's bottom line, and concluding that it all comes down to math. AEW has added events like Forbidden Door, All In, and World's End over the past couple of years, and will we soon see even more pay-per-views? Time will tell. For decades, Vince McMahon held unquestionable power over all aspects of WWE, and one person who learned of McMahon's might firsthand was Tough Enough winner Maven. On a recent video from his YouTube channel, Maven recalled attending an all-talent meeting held by Vince, with the roster concerned as to why Vince had called them all together. McMahon pointed out that one wrestler was missing, and that not only had they been late to a prior meeting, but they had tried to make excuses, which only infuriated the boss further. That wrestler ultimately lost their job, with McMahon arguing that he couldn't trust them, so it goes to show to always be punctual when Vince McMahon is expecting you. It was back at AEW's Wrestle Dream event that Adam Copeland made his debut for the promotion, and he's been working with some interesting names ever since then. While Copeland's main feud has been with Christian Cage, he's been sharing the ring with the likes of Nick Wayne and Luchasaurus, and the Rated R superstar has plans for the future. Sitting down for an interview with TSN, Copeland shared that he's eager to collaborate with the younger stars of AEW going forward, and said that he knows how stressful the start of a career can be. Copeland said he wants to help young talent navigate through stormy waters and help them craft stories and characters in addition to putting on great matches in the ring. Psychology is a big thing Copeland wants to focus on, as he hopes young talent think about why they want to do something on TV, and what's the reason and motivations behind what they're doing. Copeland has been open with the fact that he's in the last run of his wrestling career, but with his interest in helping young talent, he could have plenty to do behind the scenes in AEW once he's hung up his boots for good. At Survivor Series, Randy Orton made his return after over a year on the shelf, and the Viper earned a massive response from the moment his iconic Voices theme hit. Well, it turns out that Orton nearly returned to a much different song, as Fightful reports that WWE tested a new theme for Orton, but those plans were scrapped. Orton has used Voices since 2008, so it'd be strange to hear him use a new theme, and we'd likely be hearing Voices until the Viper wrestles his last match. And we're ending with Matt Riddle, and when his non-compete clause with WWE expired earlier this month, it was quickly announced that he'd joined MLW and will be at their upcoming event in January. Now MLW has decided to hype up Riddle's impending return to the promotion with some new merchandise featuring Riddle's name and an illustration of his face. Riddle worked with MLW for some time prior to joining WWE, and now that he's back, we'll have to see what's next for the original bro when he makes his return to a ring outside of WWE.